It is the year 2026. On the surface, the American economy looks solid, you know. We have seen steady growth over the past 5 years. The unemployment rate is low, holding at just 4.3%. Inflation, that monster that haunted us just a few years ago, has been tamed. It now stands at a relatively moderate 3.3%. By almost any traditional measure that economists like me use, the country is doing well. The numbers tell a story of recovery and stability. We have navigated the turbulent post-pandemic years and emerged with an economy that appears resilient. This should be a time of cautious optimism for most American families. Yet, if you talk to your neighbors, your friends, or even look in the mirror, you might feel a deep sense of unease. This feeling is not just anecdotal, it is backed by hard data. The University of Michigan's closely watched consumer sentiment survey has plummeted. It has reached its lowest point since they began tracking it all the way back in 1978. This is a shocking statistic. It means that Americans today feel worse about their economic prospects than they did during the recessions of the early 1980s, the dot-com bust, or even the Great Recession of 2008. There is a massive gap between the economic data and how people actually feel. This disconnect is the central puzzle of our time. Why do Americans hate the 2026 economy? The answer is not simple. It cannot be found in a single headline number or a government report. It lives in the daily experiences of millions of people. It is a story about the lingering scars of past inflation, the psychological impact of sudden price shocks, and the way our political divisions color our perception of reality. The current Trump administration, much like the Biden presidency before it, is finding it incredibly difficult to convince the public that things are getting better. It is an uphill battle to tell people they are doing well when they simply do not feel it in their bones. In this essay, we will unravel this puzzle. We will explore why the official statistics seem to tell one story, while the hearts and minds of Americans tell another. We will look beyond the annual inflation rate to understand the cumulative burden of rising prices over several years. We will examine how recent global events, like the conflict in the Middle East, have sent shockwaves through our economy, particularly at the gas pump. Our goal is to explain why you might be feeling anxious about your finances, even when the experts say you shouldn't be. This is the hidden reality of inflation in 2026. The story of our economic anxiety begins with expectations. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York regularly surveys households about what they think will happen with inflation. Their latest report from March 2026 shows a worrying trend. People's expectations for inflation in the near future have jumped up. This pessimism is not coming out of nowhere. It is directly linked to things we see every day. The most significant factor is the price of gasoline. Following the outbreak of conflict in the Middle East, gas price expectations surged to their highest level since March 2022. When people see the numbers on those big signs at the corner gas station climbing higher and higher, it directly impacts their outlook. This spike in gas prices acts like a signal. It tells consumers that trouble might be on the horizon. Even though overall inflation is moderate at 3.3%, the sharp increase in a highly visible cost like fuel creates a sense of dread. The Federal Reserve Bank of Boston confirmed this in its recent analysis. It noted that consumer prices surged in March largely because of the spike in gas prices. However, their report also pointed to something more troubling. Even when you strip out volatile food and energy prices, so-called core inflation also saw an above-average increase in regions like New England. This suggests that inflationary pressures are becoming more widespread again. This is where the difference between economic data and lived experience becomes so important. An economist might look at a 3.3% annual inflation rate and see moderation, but a family sees their grocery bill, their rent, their utility costs continuing to climb. The pain of past inflation, when prices rose much faster, has not gone away. The cost of living is cumulatively much higher than it was 5 years ago. A 3% increase on top of a price that has already increased by 15% over the past few years feels punishing. Your paycheck may have gone up, but it feels like it is buying less and less. This is the concept of cumulative inflation, and it is a heavy weight on the American psyche. This essay aims to bridge the gap between the numbers and the feelings. We will investigate the psychological forces and the political forces that shape our economic reality. We will explore why low unemployment does not always translate to financial security, and why positive GDP growth can feel meaningless when your personal budget is stretched to its breaking point. By understanding the true sources of this economic pessimism, we can begin a more honest conversation about what is happening in our country. More importantly, we can discuss what can actually be done to help American families feel as secure as the economic indicators suggest they should be. From my perspective as an economist, the data for 2026 paints a picture of a resilient and recovering nation. When we look at the big picture, the key indicators are pointing in the right direction. The nation's gross domestic product, or GDP, which is the total value of everything we produce, has shown consistent growth. This isn't a sudden fleeting spike, it's a steady trend that has been building for the past 5 years. Businesses are expanding, innovation is happening, the overall economic engine is running smoothly. This steady growth is the foundation upon which prosperity is typically built. It suggests a stable environment for investment. It suggests job creation across the country. Another crucial piece of the puzzle is the labor market. In 2026, the unemployment rate stands at a low 4.3%. This figure is not just an abstract number. It represents millions of Americans who have jobs and are earning a paycheck. A low unemployment rate means that businesses are actively hiring. People who want to work have a very good chance of finding a position. This creates competition for workers. That usually leads to better wages and benefits. From a purely statistical standpoint, this is a sign of a very healthy economy. The vast majority of people who are seeking employment can secure it. They contribute to household income and broader economic activity. Then there is the headline, inflation rate. After the painful surges we experienced just a few years ago, seeing inflation at 3.3% is a significant achievement. Economists see this as a sign that the Federal Reserve's policies have worked to cool down an overheated economy without tipping it into a deep recession. We measure this using the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. It tracks the average change in prices paid by urban consumers for a basket of goods. It tracks the average change in prices paid by urban consumers for services. A 3.3% annual rate is considered moderate and manageable. It suggests that while prices are still rising, they are doing so at a much slower and more predictable pace than in the recent past. This is the story the numbers tell. It is a logical, data-driven narrative of success. We, as economists and policymakers, look at these figures, solid GDP growth, low unemployment, and moderate inflation, and conclude that the economic fundamentals are strong. The policy levers that were pulled have had their intended effect. The ship has been steadied after a major storm. In theory, this combination of factors should lead to a widespread feeling of financial well-being and optimism about the future. The data suggests that the average American family is, by the numbers, in a better position than they were a few years ago. But this is where our story takes a sharp turn, away from the spreadsheets and into the reality of daily life. Now, let's step away from the national averages and into the kitchen of a typical American family. Here, the economy isn't measured in percentage points or GDP trends, it's measured in dollars and cents. It's the daily, weekly, monthly calculation of what comes in versus what goes out. While an economist sees a 3.3% inflation rate, a family sees that their weekly grocery bill is still $50 higher than it was a few years ago. That trip to the supermarket feels more like a financial hurdle than a simple errand. The prices for milk, eggs, bread, Meat. May not be skyrocketing like they were in 2022, but they aren't coming back down either. They are just rising more slowly, from an already painfully high level. This same story unfolds across the entire household budget. Consider housing costs, the single largest expense for most families. Rents in many parts of the country have climbed relentlessly. Lease renewal notice with a 5% increase means hundreds of extra dollars a year a family must find. The dream of home ownership feels even more distant, as higher home prices and mortgage rates block many buyers. This isn't an abstract indicator. It's the feeling of being trapped and of home turning into financial stress, not just big-ticket items. Utility bills are higher. Filling up the family car is a weekly anxiety. Even taking the kids out for pizza costs more. Medical costs are another major pressure. Insurance premiums, deductibles, out-of-pocket expenses continue their relentless upward march. An unexpected illness or ER visit can be financially devastating. These are not insignificant changes. They are real hits to a family's purchasing power and security. This is the disconnect. Government stats measure the rate of change. Families feel the actual price level. Your paycheck might have increased, but if prices rose faster, you're falling behind. You're working just as hard or harder, but your money doesn't go as far. Erosion of purchasing power is a constant pressure. It feels like running on a treadmill, working tirelessly to stay in place. This feeling is not irrational. It's a logical response to the reality of the household ledger.